Welcome to This Podcast is for Nerds. My name is Sakaido, the brilliant detective, and I am joined by Kairu. I'm here to solve her chocolatey murder.
and I have solved how to come in with an excellent intro to a podcast, because Calvin has just literally swept me off my feet with that one.
Well, thank you. I was watching the show and it kept happening, and I was like, this is the perfect podcast intro. I have to make this work.
So, and you did, because I did not know where you're going with it, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I wanted to surprise you with it. So welcome to, I don't think we really have a name for this series that we're doing. This is episode 4 of This Podcast is for Nerds. So this is a series where we're going to watch, read, or play something, and then we're going to review it. So this week's viewing was, is it ID Invaded? I think it's ID Invaded. It's ID Invaded okay. because of the ID Wells. Oh, well, they call it the... Okay, so I watched it dubbed for a little bit. Ooh. I know, sin.
No,
sin,
I'm actually curious, because I actually didn't watch it dubbed. So...
Oh, okay. So so it was... because I was watching it while I was working, so like I couldn't read, so I needed to have English, and they were calling it ID Wells, not ID Wells.
Were they really?
Yeah. So I don't know if that was an issue with the I don't know how that works, like the companies that they hire out to do the voice acting. Yeah. Okay. So ID Invaded. Whatever.
It could be. I'm totally wrong, because there were no periods to separate I and D. Maybe right, I just thought to myself, ID Will sounds really stupid.
Well, no, I'm pretty sure when I mentioned it in the episode, that's definitely going to get deleted. I'm pretty sure I called it ID Invaded, so whatever it is, we'll get some fans.
Because I said ID Invaded, but I also didn't watch the dub, so I had no idea they were calling it ID Wells. So
yeah, that's what the English people are calling it. So yeah, so this all
your days belong to us.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the first little bit we'll just give our take on it. We're not going to spoil anything, and then we'll let everyone know when we're going to get into spoilers, and then you can hop off and watch the show and come back, maybe, if you want to hear our opinions.
That's right. Come back. Go watch the show and come back. You better come back.
Yeah, definitely come back. So off the top, what did you think of the show, Zach? I mean, you recommended it, so you had to have liked it a little bit.
I did recommend the show, whether it's called ID Invaded or ID Invaded. I think the latter sounds cooler, but whatever, I could be totally wrong. I actually passed this show on Hulu a bunch of times and never looked into it. The art style from the very beginning, just in the Hulu, like, pictures, because they weren't trailers, because trailers didn't play, it just looked like, okay, I know, based on the description, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be into this. It looks like the main character is going to be a guy with a super light voice who's a kid, and again, I got caught in the whole Naruto power of friendship. I don't want to do this crap right now. So I avoided this for a long time, and then one night I was just like, you know what, there's nothing else on. There's no new episodes of anything else. I'm going to give it a shot. And we open to a scene of the brilliant detective with his body in shambles in a world that's fragmented and split to pieces with no explanation at all. And I think even the first episode, you don't get an explanation of really what's going on until the end.
Well, that was the thing I wanted to get into. Like, this is the first anime in recent memory where I was very confused about what was going on, and I was like having to check the wiki for the show to like confirm what I thought was happening. And I still like have, after I just watched the finale 10 minutes ago before recording this, and I still have like a few questions. So I think that's really cool that it's not so simple. I feel like a lot of animes, like they're pretty easy to follow.
Right.
This was not the case at all.
I agree. And there's a bunch of anime I found on Hulu recently that kind of caught my attention that I didn't expect to, in the same vein. And a couple of those we'll mention later on, because we'll probably have episodes on them later on. But one of them that I'm in the middle of watching right now is called Jormungand, which is the world eater snake from Norse mythology. And it's about an arms trader. And that's hilarious. And it's also very gritty. And I love it. Another one would be Fairy Gone, where most of the time when you see a female protagonist in a show, when she's trying to find her friend, it's always like, oh, I'm just crying my way through everything, blah, blah, blah. No, the heroine busts in the scene with a rifle, and she just is your innocent high school, teenage, whatever, but it's set in a post-apocalyptic type of... It's set in like a 18th century Victorian era, and she's just rocking this rifle like it's no big deal. But she's still a kid, and it's like, that's... awesome.
that might be one we have to watch for a future episode, because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that too. So for me, an anime now has to grab me, because I grew up watching anime, and I really just have my niche of what I like and what I don't, and what I will stand for and what I won't. Like super ecchi things, or things where it's just like the dude trips and falls in some girl's boobs or panties, and it shows a scene of her him molesting her for an hour. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna watch this.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's like, I hate that in anime too. Like the overly sexualized stuff. And I was watching the show and I was like, oh, thank God they're not falling into any of these tropes. And without spoiling, it's not any major spoiler, but like in the last episode, there is a scene where one of the characters like gets pushed into a woman's breasts, and it's like, it's a direct shot of her breasts like being squeezed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, come on. But like, it doesn't detract from the show at all, but they were doing so well for so long.
It's really, that's how I felt about Fire Force also. Fire Force is another show that came out that has really great animation, except for they fall for two tropes that I just can't goddamn stand, and that's the plagued, misunderstood main character, and he's really a good guy, but people think he's a bad guy, and all of a sudden, like, oh, his life is so tragic. But then they have this thing where there's this one girl who her magic power or charm is a lecher lure, where she will randomly do something lecherous to someone or someone around her. Like, she'll jump and try to punch someone and end up with like panty side just right in this dude's face. I'm like, cool. I'm slow clapping anime, just for
Yeah, so that's for you.
Those are requirements of an anime for me to not watch them. And ID Invaded or It Invaded didn't have any of these things. And I love a good mystery. I love a good suspense story. And this definitely had all the elements of a classic whodunit caper that it kept me going. Like, I don't binge watch, but I literally sat there like for 3 or 4 episodes at a time going, what's happening? I want to know what's happening next.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I remember like an episode would end and I'd be like, oh, I need to watch the next one. I need to know like what's going to happen. So I think we can give like a brief summary of the plot of the show, I guess, without getting into spoilers. But basically, I think you described it well. It's kind of like a Minority Report almost, but not exactly. It doesn't really fit into that. But basically, there's a company. They're the police force, right? They're like their own sect of the police force. They're called the Kura, I think.
Yes. And
they have something called the Monozume or something like that. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So it's a program, I guess, right, that they go into, and they are able to like hunt down serial killers using this, but they have to like send somebody into this like virtual space. I don't want to give away too much. So it follows like the main guy that they use to go in and solve these series of murders. And this one season, they're going after this main guy that's kind of responsible for a lot of these like serial killers. His name is John Walker. So yeah, I would say if you like anime with that like focuses on mystery and has some really weird vibes to it, you might enjoy this anime. but it's one you really have to pay attention to. It is hard to have as a background show. It's got to be your main focus, I think. So yeah, if you've not watched it, I think this is where we're going to get into the spoilers for the show. So yeah. All right. So spoiler time. Zach, why is Kaoru always dead? I don't understand.
So, do you remember the part in which Sakaido goes in and lives in that world for a year?
Yeah.
Okay, and he like meets her in the bed.
Yeah.
In the hospital room. So you have the time when John Walker invites the serial killer's subconscious to keep killing her over and over again in order to make her a link to finding the serial killers that he planted. So it wouldn't have worked unless he knew about the psyche of all of the serial killers that were already, that he created them. So in a sense, he had to know. Really, and that's one other part I'm still trying to figure out, because of like, they don't really explain her ability to bring the dream world to real world, or that she's shredding reality. She doesn't really like get into that too much.
She just has it, and they don't really go into that. Like, it's just something she has. Like, she invites people in, or she broadcasts her dream space to people, and they come in, and that they don't really dive deep into that much.
They don't.
And I feel like the ending is like, I was super excited at the thought of what was his name, Momoko. He was like the head of the Kaoru group, or Kura group. He was like, "Oh, we can run away together, and we can just get you away from like people that are dreaming." I was like, "Oh, that's kind of like an interesting idea. I think that'd be kind of a cool thing." And then they just kind of like abandoned that. But I think it does set it up well for a season 2 if that ever happens.
Absolutely. Because especially too towards the end of the season, you saw where John Walker was looking at all these different masks that were just there in her subconscious, in her well, and was like, cool, I can see all these and stop all these crimes or whatever, but he couldn't. So which of the serial killers was the most interesting to you? I'm gonna say it would have to be the girl who buried people.
Oh man, that's exactly the one. Yeah, that was the one. That was my choice too.
Because that one was definitely multi-layered, because the fact that like the guy that she wanted to help her commit the murders with got a drill in his head also, and that just like made everything go all over the place as far as like
so interesting. So it starts with Fukuda, so that's like one of the serial killers, and he's got like this hole in his head, and you learn as the season goes on that he had done this. He doesn't. Does he? I forget. Does he really explain why he did it?
He has. I forgot what it was called. It's the disorder where you are really good with numbers, but you can't get them out of your mind. I forgot the technical name for that, but he suffered from that in the beginning, and he basically used the drill to try and like alter his frontal cortex to stop that from happening. And when he did,
and that's where they get into the numbers thing. Right. That one episode with like the numbers and the lightning is striking on the numbers and all that.
Yeah, no, that's the one. So that one is the one where they all three of them dive, or the two of them dive in, and he in that world he's a brilliant detective who doesn't have a hole in his head. He's obsessed with numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is. Yeah,
and then that's how he was able to count and pull them out after 10 minutes, even though it was 10 minutes in his world. It was a whole year. When they get into that, they're like, "You're in a well within a well. Who knows how long we've been in this one?" And I was just like, "Oh man, this is just like Inception." Yeah, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." Yeah, it's Minority Report with Inception. Only, I feel like because Inception was a great movie. Yeah. Definitely. It's just I like the barrier of not being like, oh, what was this whole thing a dream? Like, I don't fuck with me if I'm going to give you my time and energy. Yeah, the show was so good, man. Like I was hooked early on. I think so for me, like the animes, they always have like this crazy, like big, I think we talked about this. They always have like these big sweeping landscapes, these crazy intro songs. And I put in the first episode after we talked about it.
and it's just like a little piano, and it's like the names of I'm assuming the producers, and then the show just starts, and I'm like, oh man, this is like, they're not messing around. They're just like, they want to start the story right away, and then they start introducing, like, there's like an intro song and the outro song, and even like the music in between. My wife and I were watching the show together, and there were a few songs where like, oh man, I am hooked on this song, and like we've added it to our Spotify playlist. Yep. And we'll listen to like there's the episode with the bombings where he goes to save that little girl, and there's the guy the old man that was like the failure or whatever, and there's a song where he's like running, I think, to the little girl's apartment. And it is, oh man, that song slaps, dude. It is awesome. It is such a good song. And that outro song, like, normally when I listen to like or watch an anime, any show, the credits start rolling, and I'm like, all right, on to the next one, or I'm done.
Right.
This, like, I have to listen to the song all the way through because I love the song so much.
I told you, Miyavi is the shit.
Yeah, you had mentioned it when we were in the last episode. You were like, the music is so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. The music is amazing.
And I literally was like, I woke up this morning to go on a run and literally put on Other Side when I was driving to the park.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, so this is made by Nas Studio, which this is like their first original thing. They've done adaptations before, Dramatical Murder, which I've heard of, Hamatora, which apparently is big, but I've not heard of it.
I haven't either, actually.
It's like a wholly original thing, and now they're going to do a manga, which I'm super excited about, because maybe that means, they're doing their own unique story, which I think would be really cool. You could get into other cases that they're solving, because at the end they kind of tease, like, they kind of, all the events of season 1 kind of get brushed under the rug, and no one knows about what happened. But they make it sound like this isn't the first time that something like this has happened, where they've had to kind of have like a cover up within Kura. So I think that'd be really cool if the manga just kind of did its own thing and maybe focused on a different killer or something like that.
What I think was really cool was the fact that the junior detective and the field agent, I forgot her name.
I should know this because I just watched an episode with her. Go ahead. Sorry. She
is tough as balls, and normally the girls in anime, something bad always happens to them, and they need to be saved, and then, oh my gosh, you saved me. But she's a junior field detective. She's an agent, and she has balls, and she kicks ass. Man.
Yeah,
for those who don't know, she gets Hondo Machi. So when they're tracking down one of the serial killers, the guy who put the drill into his head, he actually kidnaps her, and the whole reason he ends up being sort of used and worked with Kura, because of qualification to use their machine in order to go into an id well or an ID well, is you have to be a serial killer. And they didn't really get into why that is either, actually.
Yeah, when it was, man, that was so cool. So like, yeah, when she puts the drill right up to her head, she basically does it for him.
Yeah.
I was shocked by that.
Yeah.
But then later on, they go to the gravedigger's house, and she kills the guy, she stabs him, and they arrest the woman, and her boss, I forget his name, but he ends up with a new rookie at the end of the season, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm curious to see if they explore that.
I was surprised too, because the way they shot the last episodes with him, it looked like he was going to take over and be the head of Kura, since the head of Kura was the dickhead who was actually John Walker.
Man, I saw that coming a mile away. The first scene where he walks in, I was like, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Yeah.
He's got that beard. I'm like, I don't know.
The minute he was like, I'm sorry, we don't know what's going on, but we have to take you into custody. I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I knew right away that was a setup.
Like, I knew it was him, but I also couldn't figure out how it was him. So that's why I kept watching, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, it didn't deter me at all from watching the show. It was so good. But yeah, so like, when we find out, because you find out that you have to be a killer to go into the Idwells by her boss, because he pulls her aside after she kills the gravedigger, and he basically tells her he's transferring her, and she's like so excited, and he's like, no, do you know what it takes to like go into the Idwells? And she's like, oh, you have to be really smart and stuff. He's like, yeah, but you also have to have like an urge to kill, like. And he was like, how long have you had this urge to kill? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
And when he's like, don't think I was doing it as a favor to you. I did it to protect myself and the rest of my team.
Yeah, man, I was so bummed by that. That was such a bummer. I was like, oh man, I thought he was proud of her. It's like, no, I don't want this. I don't want to work with a serial killer.
And see, that's kind of the things I appreciate too. It just was different. It threw me off. It didn't follow the normal things I'm used to when I watch an anime. Like, for the most part, I can watch an anime for 10 minutes and go, yes or no, straight up. Like, there was one I was looking at the other day called, I think it was Plunderer, and it looked interesting. And the first couple scenes were enough to grab me. I was like, okay, cool. This is lady who's sinking into a lake of arms and giving her daughter an orb with a number on it. A number on her arm was glowing red, like it was 0. I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is about. That's interesting. And the next scene, it shows the daughter's growing up, and she's hanging out with some girls at a pool, and some dude jumps out in front of the pool and was like looking at her panty and groping on her legs. I was like, cool.
No.
And I don't see why sexual assault is great, and then it's justified just because the girl punches him. That doesn't stop it.
No, not at all.
Sorry, we're getting distracted, but I will say too, the animation style of this show too. I really give it to studios who put an effort into animation and storytelling. And granted, you could think, oh well, that's what an anime should be, but damn well there's shows and companies who don't do that. They just expect you to just take it, especially with filler episodes.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That's the nice thing is like this show was 13 episodes and that's like totally doable. I didn't feel like there were any filler episodes really, especially the 2-parters, because I was like anytime I knew that there was a second part to one episode, I was like, I'm watching the next one. I'm not going to have a break because like it's clearly a continuation of what I've just watched. So I feel like I need to watch it.
And there really was no time to have a filler.
The interesting thing to me is like, and I hate this with like live action shows, but this did something kind of unique with it, was like, I mean, the show was basically like a killer of the week type show, because each week it's like you're going into a different Idwell, this is a different serial killer, but like in the meantime there's like all this background stuff going on. The overarching is like finding out John Walker, but like each Idwell is so interesting, and learning about the killer was so interesting to me that it didn't feel like those typical like NCIS type shows,
Yeah.
Like it was just wholly unique. And I think part of that was because it's like, it's a dream space, so it's not really reality, so they can get really creative with it.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it. So like the one episode where they're on the like, there's that house that's like flying through the sky, and I think it's the gravedigger is like, he's just a head and like a torso and one arm, and he's just kind of like hanging there, like onto the side of the like the dirt, and he's just like flying through. I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, I think it was like it took some like tropes and made it wholly unique. And I'm just like, this has gotten me. I've taken a break from anime for a while, and I feel like this is the type of show that's going to get me back into it. So I'm really excited.
There was one scene that I'm going back to the very intro as well, where I liked how the main character, the brilliant detective Sakaido, when he woke up and was like, okay, my arms and legs are literally in cylinders across the room, I can still move it. And we're like figuring things out and experiencing it with him.
Yeah, that was so cool.
To an RPG video game where you're like, okay, what's happening? So instead of like a game telling you a tutorial for how to play the game, it's like, oh, I'm figuring things out by doing this. Or, that's how video games used to be with Mega Man. You know how to play Mega Man. No one gave you a guide. It's like you died, right. But then you figured out you could get this power to unlock this boss, to do this, to do that. And that was just awesome. So I really liked it. It was like we were experiencing it with him because he lost his memory every time. And that's also a thing that happens. To be a brilliant detective, you have to forget who you are in the regular world when you fall into the Idwell or Idwell. And that was very interesting because they always went in and went, whoa, I don't know who I am, but I know this girl who's next to me who's dead. Her name is Kaoru. And I know my name. I'm a detective. I'm supposed to solve her murder. And which was interesting is they would use that mechanic to find who the killer was in real life, even though the person who dove into the well was completely unaware that that's what they had been sent in there to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It just made me think. So my wife was kind of like half watching it with me, and there would be the scenes where he goes into the Idwell and he talks about how he's a brilliant detective, and just like, man, he's really full of himself. I'm like, no, it's like it took me a while to realize it too. I was like, oh, this is like a title that they have. It's not like a you're a brilliant detective. It's like, no, that's a title. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, and there's so much that's like not programmed that we don't know about too. Like you said, like the creation, why it was created, who was created. We knew that it had been around for a year or two. But we didn't know about the creator because he had been killed by John Walker, I'm assuming. And
yeah, probably.
So there's just so many layers to it that are still left to be found out, honestly.
Yeah, it's one I really hope that they get. I haven't seen a ton of people talking about it online, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping there'd be more, like, I checked some forums and I didn't see many people talking about it, but it's really well reviewed by the people that did see it. So I'm hoping they get a season 2 because this is like the first original thing they've done. So I hope it encourages them to keep doing that. What would you like to see in a season 2 if they did it?
Well, John Walker's been captured. What I would want to see rather, is if a season 2 came out, more in-depth looks into the creation of the Mizuhone, as well as the Kaoru, her powers and how those come about. Because I would imagine if she can do it, that she's not the only one in the world who has the ability to do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
And so if they went and followed that path, figuring out what they could do for someone who does not want to be cooperative and is also a serial killer because they like melting people's minds. Who knows? Like, there's a whole...
Yeah, that was kind of my idea for season 2, is maybe she's so tired of... What's her actual name? It's like Mimiku or something like that.
Yeah.
That she's just like so tired of doing this. I'd like to see a season where she kind of like goes rogue and kind of manipulates the Idwells. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Because I think in both ways you'd have to find a cure for her problem by stopping her or someone who went absolutely rogue with intent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. I would like that. Yeah, so I think overall, I think we both really enjoyed the show. If you had to give it a rating out of, you can do 5 or 10, your call, what would you give it?
If I stack it up against animes that I find to be 10 out of 10s, in my 10 out of 10s, like Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop, if those were 10s, I would put this at like a solid 9.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I think I would give it probably a 4 out of 5, I think. So okay. pretty close.
So I think it was scale.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I thought the show was fantastic, and I hope Nas gets to keep doing stuff. And it looks like on their lineup here on Wikipedia, they're doing an adaptation of a light novel called Infinite Dendrogram.
Oh, that's a light novel.
Apparently, and they are doing anime for it.
So the anime
looks
out.
Like it's airing right. Oh, okay. So that was
it's on Hulu, and I've actually seen this a bunch of times. It's looked like an isekai based anime, and I kind of ignored it for that reason because there's a bunch of those right now. And since Overlord, the rest of them kind of gone to trash. Like, okay, I don't care what anybody says. Best isekai anime: Overlord, Log Horizon, and kind of isekai, not really, is Cautious Hero is overpowered, but also overly cautious. It's a nonsense name, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, so this one is set in the year 2043, virtual reality MMO. It features the ability to perfectly simulate the player's 5 senses. 2 years later, this character enters the world and assumes the name Ray Starling. Upon the arrival, he's joined by his more experienced brother and his embryo companion, Nemesis. As Ray explores the world of Infinite Dendrogram,
You're good.
he learns to make a life for himself there and meets different kinds of friends and foes. So the premise doesn't really scream something like I would watch.
Me either, honestly.
Yeah,
Sounds so goddamn boring.
it seems like, just based on this studio's history, it seems like they do the adaptations to pay the bills, and then maybe this It Invaded is like their little pet project. But hopefully it does well enough that people start giving it more attention, and they can do more of these, because it looks like, I guess this season just ended March 22nd, so it's still relatively fresh. So I think there's still plenty of time for people to watch the show, and hopefully maybe this helps. People watch this or listen to this episode and then they go on to watch the show. That'd be great. So yeah, this is going to be, I think, a bi-monthly thing that we're doing. So Zach recommended this show, so I'm going to recommend, I'm going to change gears to a movie.
Interesting.
And this isn't animated. This is a movie that I think should have gotten more attention, probably should have gotten some Oscar nominations, and it didn't.
That's a bold move, my friend.
Yeah, this will be interesting if you hate it. I'm like, it deserved Oscars. It's called Burning. It's a South Korean film.
Oh, unfamiliar.
I will give you the premise. It's on Netflix for anyone that wants to watch it. Jong-soo bumps into a girl who used to live in the same neighborhood as him. She asks him to look after her cat while she's on a trip to Africa. When back, she introduces Ben, a mysterious guy she met there, who confesses his secret hobby. So Ben is actually played by Steven Yeun. You might know him from Walking Dead. I think that's like his big thing.
Okay.
But it's like a great performance by him. Highly recommend the movie. It's pretty long. It's 2.5 hours, but to me, it's like one of the best movies that came out in 2018. So
interesting.
We'll watch that. So you have 2 weeks to watch, and then join us back episode 6, and we'll talk about Burning.
If you want to know about more recommendations and more things that we want you, actually, Calvin.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is your favorite song? Like, which episode has your favorite song from ID or It Invaded?
Oh, which...
Hang on. If you guys want to know the answer to that, you have to find out next time on This Podcast is for Nerds.